Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast, the podcast that is passing wisdom to the next generation of athletes, coaches, and parents to transform leaders on and off the court. And in today's episode, we get the opportunity and privilege to interview Coach Pie. Coach Pie is the founder of Prince Guerrilla Athletics, and his story is quite amazing. He is from the Bronx and had, a challenging time growing up in the Bronx, and shared his story about being an athlete and, having that tough transition into adulthood, and how he's taken that tough transition and turned it into a Lamborghini of athletic and strength development training. It's been a ton of fun having this conversation. There's so much wisdom for parents in here and coaches as well. It's amazing the amount of time he invests into his athletes and the results that he's getting to his athletes. And we talk about education as well. It's not just about athletics, it's education. It's impacting through life. The way we win matters. So let's dive in now. Hello and welcome to the Bridging Impact Podcast, Coach Pie. I'm thrilled to have you on today to have our discussion on strength and conditioning, the investment around athletes, and also about, may talk some boarding schools, the educational component of the development of people. So I'm excited for our conversation today.
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot, Coach, for having me. I know it's been our schedules were kind of a little up and down, but I'm excited to be on and kind of dive in and really hope we can get some information out there that'll help some people.
Awesome. Me too. And diving right into it, I'm glad that, we're here, and we're here because, the game of sports, strength, conditioning, a lot of the things that life lessons that the two of us teach, right? And so what kind of impact has, just sports in general had on your life?
Oh, man. Sports in general on my life. I mean, it was everything, right? It's the way that you express yourself, right? It's the way that if you're not a good communicator verbally, you can express yourself through the sport, and it's the way that you become social, right? Growing up in the Bronx, growing up in New York City, being prolific at sports is that's your calling card, right? That's the way that you very early on, that's how you identify yourself, right? Because you can do this thing really well, and you manage to figure out how to do it really well. Sports was huge, right? For me, because you're learning very early on how to lose, right, with class, right, and how to win with class as well. I think that those things are super important. To be able to play basketball, in the street, and after the game, whether you lost or not, you still gave whoever a pound, good game, and went and did whatever else. But you understood that was the natural order of things, right? And of course that carries over. There, regardless to what, I mean, of course things would get heated, but it was never really any super hard feelings, right? Because
Right.
What it did, it taught, that's where you learned how to compete. You understood, you understood that, if you were down by 10 or 12, there was a way to come back. It didn't mean that the game was over. All right. And so, I mean, and that carries over into life, right? So that is what sports itself did for me being an only child. Sports was such a significant part of who I was, and what it is that I wanted to do, with myself, right? You couldn't tell me that I wasn't going to the NFL. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, no, that's great. And, you talk about being an only child, and that, part of the reason, sports is so great is the ability to build friendships and build those social connections, right? Especially, when you're learning just who you are as a young person, right? Building that identity, like you said. And as you kind of built your own identity through sports, and obviously it's made an impact on you as you want to continue to give that back to the next generation as a coach. I'd love for you to share, about what was that evolution like for you to go from athlete to coach. And did you know that you wanted to coach your whole life, or was that something you kind of stumbled into, learning through communication, new identity, and
It was,
let's see it.
it was, I mean, um, it was all accidental, right?
Mm,
Um, you're playing, you're, like I said, very early on, you're playing sports, and sports is your identity, right? And, you're loving it, and you realize, there's that point, right, coach, where, um, you start to see, man, this thing is not happening for me.
mm,
It's not panning out the way that that I wanted it to. Um, and so now you're in a situation where, okay, this is not panning out. So now what tends to happen, right, is now all of the external things start to pull at you, right? Once again, here it is. Now we're talking about me growing up in New York City at the height, the very beginning of the crack era.
mm,
Okay. And so here it is. Okay. I'm not getting a football scholarship. It's
right.
not going to happen. It's not happening. And so now that that's recognized, I realized, like, oh, wow. So that's it, you know, um, and to make a long story short, I get involved in the streets, and I find myself in situations that now I you know I have found a way to get into my own way, right? And now, um my freedom is taken away from me,
Mm,
and it's in these situations, coach, where, um and it had to happen more than once, right? Because you're not you feel like, for some reason, there's a way for you to figure this thing out, right? Like,
right.
I'm gonna figure out how to do it better than the last guy that's
Right.
doing this thing, right? And you come to realize as you get older that, um no, that I remember a guy telling me, um and I'll never forget it. It's crystal clear. He said, "Pod is not a book that has been wrote on how to do it better," and that really stuck with me. And what he was saying is that there is no outdoing or doing better. If you're going to entrench yourself into this life, then there it is. You this is what you'll do forever, like, until you figure it out. And so, um, as I'm in my late 20s, and now I finally figured out that I still love sports, right? Because now I'm playing, I'm still playing, right? I'm playing softball, I'm playing flag football,
Right.
but
Right.
now I'm doing it in a federal penitentiary, right?
Right.
And but everyone is still telling me, like, man, you're good, like,
Right. Right.
right, like, and so I remember, a friend of mine, good friend of mine, he actually owns a gym down in Manhattan now, and he, at the time, I had come home, and I'm just working a regular job, kind of, at a lighting company, and he said, hey, I want you to go see this dude about a training job. I said, man, I'm not doing no training. Meanwhile, coach, when I was inside, like I trained like a monster, like as if I was going to the league.
Right, right.
Right. But what he saw is that you can take this and use it. Now, I didn't see that in myself.
Right.
Right. But he saw it and he's like, I want you to go see this guy. And that was the beginning of my whole introduction to training. And that was in 2000.
That's cool. That's a really cool story. And I think it's almost like foreshadowing for you as a coach. And I'm sure what you have done for so many young athletes is a lot of times athletes don't see their own potential, right? Someone saw potential in you. And so you almost feel like this responsibility to continue giving that back. So I love for you to, share with the audience a little bit more about, how you've built Guerrilla Prince Athletics and, educational consulting and a lot of what you do now to give back and create that potential for the next generation.
Oh man, it's coach. It's all about giving back now for me. When I look at especially kids that come from where I come from, right?
Right.
We lack the resources. We lack the schools. We lack so many of the things that are necessary to be successful. I never realized it until later on as an adult that the pressure that we put on children and say, hey, I want you to be successful, but I'm going to send you to the mediocre school, right? I'm going to give you the least amount of tools, but I want you to end up at Stanford.
Right.
How does that happen? Like that's not like every now and then, yeah, there's an anomaly. There's that kid that manages to break through and come from those very, very humble beginnings and is able to make that jump. But the reality is, coach, is that for everyone else, with those lesser tools and those lesser resources, there's no way for them to make it to that situation. So
right.
My job now is to talk to young parents with young student athletes, or even if they're not student athletes, and talk about what is the outcome. What's the outcome that you're looking for? I want my daughter to go to Notre Dame. Okay, great school. Now, what I want to know is, how do we plan to get there? Are we just saying it? Are we wishing it, or do we really want it to happen? Because if you really want it to happen, there's a way to go about it.
Right.
And I think that in the community that I came from, it wasn't even something there. There were very few people that would say that they wanted to go to a place like a Stanford or a Michigan or a Clemson. Nobody even said those places because that's how far away they seem. Those places might as well have been on the moon. That's how far away they were for people that come from the Bronx, right? And so now it's my job to shrink that space and say, no, it's very attainable for you to get there, but let me show you how it is that you're going to need, what you're going to need to do as a parent, and what your student or student athlete is going to need to do to get there as well, because there's a way to go about it. And I think that is, I know for sure that I didn't have that person that said, hey, you want to go, I've always been a huge Syracuse fan. So Syracuse was my dream school. Right. You know what I mean? I didn't know what it literally took to get to Syracuse, but once again, I didn't have a reference point. And what I do now with my program, I have somebody that's at Syracuse. I have somebody that's at Kansas. So that
Right.
fifth or sixth grader that really wants, I have somebody that's playing lacrosse at Princeton. You want to play? I can, not only am I going to make the contact, that's going to be your mentor. And so that you can say, I now have a reference point to the space that I want to get to. You understand? As opposed to just saying, like I told my son, my son's at Wisconsin, and I've always been a Big Ten fan, huge.
Yeah.
I remember Tom Osborne at Nebraska back in the days, Hayden Fry at Iowa. Like, I remember those guys, right? So now, me as a parent, being able to go to those stadiums, I was like a kid.
Yeah, that's fun.
It was crazy, right? Because here it is, this guy's getting to play on the field, which is what I really always wanted to do. But now I'm a spectator at these places. I've been to them all, right? And so now it's like, man, like these are all the places that I've always wanted to go as a 10-year-old kid. Right?
That's amazing.
And so now, full circle, it did not happen for me, which is fine, right? But somehow I was brought back to those places that I adored. Right? And so that's what I want to do now. I want to be able to give that, like I said, shrink that space that you think that place that you can't get to. I'm going to make sure that you have some sort of access, or you have some sort of ability to have an understanding of what it's going to take for you to get to that space. Yeah, you can really go to Princeton. You can go. Yeah. I got somebody that's there right now that you want to talk to them about it. I have plenty of Princeton alumni, plenty of clients that I've trained over the years that can give you some insight and perspective of what it's going to take for you to be successful in that space. And that's what it is that I never had.
That's huge. You're creating those connections for that, the next generation of athletes. And I feel like as I hear you talking and you're going to these different stadiums that you were kind of watched on TV as a kid, it's like you're getting that opportunity to go full circle and to make that connection of like you are living your dreams by helping others, start to achieve those dreams. And I'd love for you to like walk me through some of what did that process look like when, maybe it's the 7th or 8th grader or even, a freshman or sophomore in high school. They're like, Coach, I want to go to Princeton, or Coach, I want to go to UCLA. It sounds like you start the connection process, but also could you dive into a little bit more of the details of how you walk them through to,
right.
Get them to achieve those goals?
Right. Well, I mean, Coach, the biggest thing is I always ask any family is, what is the outcome that we're really looking for? Is always because I'm in the business of outcomes, right? And how serious are we? Because there's a level of seriousness and commitment that has to be there. You tell me I'm a 7th grader and I want to go to UCLA. Okay. All right. So let's start mapping this thing out. Okay. First thing that we have to discuss is the academics. Where are your academics at now? Right. And if they look a little shaky, then I automatically let you know. I pull up what the criteria needs to look like for you to be able to get to UCLA. Okay. That right there. So we start there. Then if we're talking about someone who, they're a football player, a basketball player, we start breaking down that criteria. Okay. You're a DB and you're 5'10". Okay. Let's look at how many DBs UCLA has recruited that were 5'10" in the last 24 months. And if there aren't any, then I'm not saying that we're out of the race, but we're going to have to be exceptional, right? So, and if we're not, and if we already have a skill set, okay, then we'll work on that skill set. We'll work on all of the things that the recruiting coordinators and coaches at UCLA are going to want to see: the speed, the power, the change of direction, right? And then the things, character, right? What kind of kid is he? You know what I mean? Can he be coached? Does he have a funny body disposition when he's being told something? All of these different things, I let them know, because what you have to understand is that once you get to a place like UCLA, now you are now entering full-on business of football, right?
Right.
And I think that, I mean, even in high school, you're in the business of football, but once you hit that stride of to where it is now, you are now dealing with the NCAA. You're dealing with the school. Someone is making you an offer. Now this is a business exchange, whether you understand that or not. You're going to play at a certain level, and for that certain level of play, they're going to take care of your education and your room and board, right? And so this is what I think that 6th and 7th grader needs to understand. That this is why it's so important for them to understand business, right? And these are all the things that I break down for parents, and understanding that, hey, coach, why the workout so early? Why they got to be, to the workout at 3:30 in the morning? Well, what that does, coach, it weeds out who's serious and who's committed. So if the second that you ask that question, my antennas already went up, because there's a possibility that this could be a problem for you, right? You can't say that you want to get to a place like a UCLA, a USC, or Oregon, wherever, and you not sacrifice a little bit of sleep to get there.
Right.
You're talking about getting a scholarship that's going to be potentially worth over $500,000. So if you miss a few hours of sleep to get that, is that really a big deal? So what I always tell parents, how much is a scholarship worth at the University of Notre Dame? 4 years. It's probably over $500,000, right?
Probably.
What do you think that you're going to have to invest as a parent to get that, right? From a financial standpoint, I would say, from what I've seen over the last 20 years, coach, the baseline of investment, meaning good schooling, right? Training, camps, the baseline. If the kid is really, really, superior athletically, I'll say 48,000. But if this is a kid that really needed some work, it could balloon, as far as I've seen, up to anywhere as high as 81,000.
Dang, that's wild.
Right. So, and now, mind you, we still came off, right, coach? Even if we spent 81 grand and we get the scholarship, the 4-year scholarship to Notre Dame, we still came off.
Right.
We still came off. Now, it may have hurt at the time, right? But that's part of the process. This is not a painless process.
No.
It's not going to be painless financially. It's not going to be painless physically. It's not going to be painless mentally. So your level of commitment is going to have to be really, superior in terms of what it is that you're really looking for. And look, there's some parents that realize, coach, at some point, like, oh no, I've had it. Look, I can tell you a story, man. I told a parent the other day, what it's going to cost to train with me over the summer. And they said, oh no, we're not that serious. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's fine. Right?
Right.
We're not that serious. Okay. Now I wonder, did they make the decision for the kid? Because if the kid is like, man, well, I thought I was that serious. Because if we're going to sacrifice the summer program just because it's something that we don't want to pay, right? And like I tell parents all the time, Coach, you don't have to pay me, but you will pay, right? At some point. So you can say, hey, no, Coach, no, we're not going to pay that. Okay. I'm fine, man. Like, at the end of the day, I know that I have a solid product and I've proven myself year after year in terms of what it is that I'm able to produce and what I'm able to do with student athletes at a high level. But look, like I said, if this is not something that you want to do, that's fine. You want to find something that maybe is, and look, you may find something that's more economical for you that works, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, if when you go and shop for, the Lamborghini, the person that walks in there never doesn't ask for the price, right? They just pay, right? That's it. So, and that's how I feel. I feel that my product is at that level to where it is that, whatever what I tell you that the price is, you'll pay it because I get the results.
Right. It's worth it. And it's 100% worth it. And I know for me, in building, and this is kind of a quick side question is, for someone that's early on that has aspirations of building the Lamborghini product in terms of like basketball development, like what would be your quick advice to, reaching that goal? Obviously it's outcomes, and I'm working with, younger athletes. So I probably really, my results won't be for 3 to 5 years, but what really stands out in terms of your development and just, organizations that excel versus, because I've been a part of a lot of organizations that I genuinely feel are average, and I don't want to be that.
Right. And I think Coach Furtado, this is what I will say. You developing young athletes, I think to me, the key thing, especially now, is making sure that we're dealing with the educational piece at the forefront of this thing. Because, Coach, if you have good students that you're working with, you're going to develop superior athletes. They're going to be superior because they have the intellect. Now, I'm not saying that every kid that you crank out is going to be a 1A kid, but you may have some D2 guys that are superior. Like for that level, they're going to be superior.
Right.
And at the end of the day, that's all your job is to put them in the space that where they're going to thrive.
100%. Yeah. And so you talked about the educational piece, and we talked about this when we talked online or offline, is we talked about how you don't work with athletes if they don't have a certain GPA, because that means, the commitment level of your program requires them to already have stability in terms of their, academic success. So could you, expand more on that for the parents that are listening, that are, investing, like, I want my kid to be this. And we talked about it like with the UCLA, right? You got to have certain academics to reach a certain point.
The thing about it is that, especially, I mean, look, I see it here in New York so much. Parents, what parents tend to do, and I've seen it, especially in basketball, Coach. The basketball community is notorious for it, but it happens. It does happen across the board. They are caught up in the hype. right?
Mm.
So if you have
Yep.
a really super talented, and this is New York, right? I mean, I can take you down to Gauchos and show you 10-year-olds that are probably going to be, you know, probably some of the top 10-year-olds, on the East Coast, right? In
Right.
terms of skills. But now when you start talking to parents about grades, hey, how's he doing in school? That's when everybody starts to say, like, I can't hear you now. What you say, coach?
Right.
Everything gets different, right? And so now, because now they're so caught up in what it is that the student athlete does on the court, that they are foregoing on their education. And so you can't do that. And I think that, like I said, it happens notoriously, where you're like, oh, what happened to so and so? Oh, he's at a JUCO. Okay, wow, how did that happen? Right?
Right.
But the reality is, coach, is that we watched it happen. We knew it was happening. We knew that he was going, every tournament he was going to drop 20. But if he can't write an essay to save his life, what does it really mean? You know what I mean? I mean, and let's get even deeper, coach. Right? This young man or this young woman eventually is going to be a parent of some sort. Like, how? Right. What are we really doing here? Are we so caught up in the hype that we're passing on the dysfunction? And I think we have to, we got to put ourselves, on notice right there, man, because to pass that on, and it continually happens. It hasn't stopped, but that's where I draw the line. So if you come to me, I need to see your most recent report card, because it doesn't make any sense for me to be able to give you what I can, right, and invest in you the way that I can, and you can't pass math, or you're not invested in your academics the way it is that you are willing to work on your fadeaway. You're ready to spend 3 hours and drip yourself in sweat working on a fadeaway, but you will spend 20 minutes trying to slop together an essay that looks like it was written by a fourth grader. That's where we are, where we're doing these kids a disservice by not holding them to at least just a basic education and academic standard that we know is going to help them once this sports thing is over for them.
Right.
We
That's 100%.
We got to hold them. Everyone has to be held accountable, right?
Absolutely. And that's, one of the questions I was going to ask is, about that investment, right? It's, we all know that sports is more than just the game, right? Whether it's football, you're throwing the ball into the end zone, or basketball, you're putting the ball in the hoop, baseball, you're trying to hit the ball over the fence, right?
Yep.
It's more than that. And the investment that you put in, right, is the investment of just the person, developing the person, right? The eventual parent, right? The business professional, the nonprofit worker, right?
Yep.
Whatever it is, it's like that is the development into the person. So can you talk about, because I'm sure a lot of times, right, you get parents coming up to be like, well, coach, what if my player doesn't get X scholarship? Well, guess what? That player is going to be a great person. Can you dive in a little bit more? Because it is a risk, right? You said it's not pain free, right?
Look, no, it's not pain free. Look, I've worked with some great young people that had aspirations, man. Young man, Kadir was with me, trained really hard. He definitely wanted to play at the highest level. He wanted to go to the league. right? Went to college, played at college, did not, didn't really work out for him. But now Kadir is the communications director over at the LA Rams. So there it is. Kadir is
Right.
very, very smart young man. You know what I mean? So he definitely flipped it, right? And put himself in a situation where now he's still winning, right? He was able to fly his parents in and have them on the 50-yard line at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's
Right.
awesome.
So it's things like that yeah, if your son or daughter doesn't get the scholarship, it doesn't that's look, and at the end of the day, this is about, like you just said, this is about cultivating good people that are going to contribute and help society, because me and you both know, society right now needs a whole lot of help, right?
Yeah.
So we need to start producing some people that are empathetic, sympathetic, and just have have a good moral compass overall, and if we are producing people like that, coach, then I think at the end of the day, we as a society will win, right? We'll win as a society, as opposed to, maybe they didn't get the full ride, maybe they got a partial, but they're going to go on, they're going to take care of business, do what they need to do, and still go on and take care of business. Young man Nicholas, I train his mom now. Nicholas has his own, barbershop now. You know what I mean? Very, very high end barbershop
Right.
down in Maryland. Yeah, like, very, very successful. He's doing his thing. Only way that you can, you can't just walk in. It's by appointment only. This young man loved the game of football, but once again, everyone has their path and their journey, right? And it does not mean there is no failure here, right? There's no failure. It's just us learning as we go through life, right? We at the end of the day, coach, we are what we repeatedly do. We are what we repeatedly do. How you do anything is how you do everything. And if you understand those quotes, then your success will be attached to it. How you do anything. So if you do everything kind of just slow and sluggish and just, when I get to it, well, I mean, that's your success is attached to that.
Right.
But if if you're on top of things, you're precise, you're on time, you're taking care of business, you get out in front of things, and I tell kids the best thing that what shows me a lot, and I tell parents, when I have groups of parents, how many kids here made their bed in the morning? Because that tells me a whole lot. That tells me about the parent. That tells me about the kid.
Right.
Because if the parent didn't require the kid to make their bed, then you have already done them a disservice, because that right there shows a level of accountability, order, and commitment to my day. I'm starting my day off the right way with the very small task of making my bed. It represents something. So if you can walk out of your room and leave your bed unmade, I'm not sure how great the rest of your day is going to be. Now, for you, it could be, I guess, great, right? But the reality is that you really didn't start it off great. You understand? And so that simple thing right there shows me a lot about parents, and student athletes. Make that bet, because it means something absolutely from the standpoint of physically making it, right? The task, but it also represents something. And it lets me know a little bit about who it is that you are as a person. That you're willing to take that small task, the time to take that small task and start your day off in that way. And usually after that, there is a bunch of succeeding things that you're going to accomplish. And they don't have to be big things. But we know that you started your day off with the smallest of accomplishments.
How you do anything is how you do everything.
I love that. Is how you do everything. And everything. That's a fact.
Yeah. And that so much of that can be just taught through sports, right? And that's where the investment just becomes worth it in itself, right? Like Kadir in being in community relations for the, Super Bowl champion Rams. And you got, I forget the name of barbershop in Maryland, right?
Nicholas,
and being successful. Yeah. So like that's, one of the most important aspects of sports. And as we kind of wrap up this conversation, I feel like we could keep going for hours, but with that in 10 years, like what would you hope that your athletes remember from your trainings or something you said, or just from sports in general?
With me, it's change is inevitable. Growth is optional. And I think that my job is to impact lives, and I'm always, everything that comes from me, from coach, is always coming from a place of me wanting to help you get to where it is that you want to get to. It's all coming from a place of love, right? It's all and a lot of my love is probably tougher than most. But once again, we discussed earlier, this is not painless. Don't look for, don't look for my words to necessarily comfort you. Look for my words to hold you accountable to what it is that you say that you want for yourself.
100%.
So 10 years from now, look, I'm hoping that I'm still cranking them out. The non-for-profit is doing well to where it is. I don't have to charge a lot of kids. Maybe I have 30 kids a summer and nobody has to pay, because people have looked at my non-for-profit in the midst and said, hey man, this is something, this guy is really putting together something. I'm taking kids from inner cities, and the thing about it is, all of my kids are not kids that come from the inner city. I got kids that come from the Upper West Side of Manhattan that have money, you know what I mean? But know that what I do in terms of the training standpoint, that's what their parents want for them. So, but to always give back to where it is that I came from, I want to be able to do what it is that I did for my own. And that is give them an opportunity to be successful, and not give them the mediocre resources and then expect for them to do the most with almost nothing. You know what I mean? We gotta 100%. Stop doing that. We gotta stop doing that.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great perspective. I never really thought about it in that way, but you want to give excellent resources, right? Top of the line, and all kids deserve it, right? I think that's something that, me and you share, and everyone who has came on this podcast before share, all kids deserve access to those, top of the line resources, but it's about being committed to, reaching those goals if you really are striving. And every, kid is capable of doing that as well, with positive role models and leaders. And, for those that are listening and want to, maybe, support you, or, hey, maybe they even have a kid that want to come out to New York and check out your program, where can they find you and connect with you?
Our non-for-profit is gpinthemist.org. If they're interested in consulting for boarding, for going away to boarding school, it is gpconsulting.nyc. And if they're interested in the training aspect, it's Guerrilla Prince Athletics .com. And any of those handles, you can check us out, see what it is that we got going on. On Instagram, it's Guerrilla Prince Experience. And check us out, see what it is that we're doing, and how it is that we are attempting to change the narrative for student athletes, but also at the same time, Coach, shrink the wealth gap. Once again, if we shrink the wealth gap and create, to where it is that, billionaires are not a rarity, because we've given, 100, 200 kids great opportunities, great education. They're going to go on and do some very extraordinary and great things. But if we don't put them in extraordinary situations, we can't really expect extraordinary from them.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to end the show. I really appreciate your time so much today, Coach Pi. And Absolutely. I can't wait to release this episode and, let the people know all about it.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for your time. Thank you for having me on the platform, man. Like I said, I'm really grateful for you reaching out and
thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We'd love it if you would subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. And this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself, so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.